Facebook Live, take two. We tried this a couple of minutes ago, it didn't work, technical difficulties, we're back live with you. And I know you've been wondering, this has been a big thing on your mind. You've been worrying about this, probably losing some sleep over it. You think, I'd like to get to know the planets a little bit better, the planets in our solar system. Don't feel like I have a very good personal relationship with them. Don't really know them too well, and I'd like to know them a bit better. I'd like to explore them in closer detail. I can't really get there right away, but what if I could explore them and get to know them and visit them in some other way besides just going there? You know, we've got our friend Mars here, we've got Venus here, lots of interesting things to know and discover in our own solar system, let alone elsewhere in the Milky Way galaxy. But today we're going to talk about an opportunity that can let you do just that. Get to know the planets a little bit better, get to know Earth a little bit better and our moon, and indeed use some of the new tools and technologies available to us to learn about and talk about science, and in particular space science, space exploration, astrobiology, SETI, and all things cool that we do here at the SETI Institute. So, I'm Bill Diamond, President and CEO of the SETI Institute here in Mountain View, California. Welcome to another episode of Facebook Live, or Spacebook Live as we like to call it. And today we're going to talk to one of our research scientists named J.R. Skok. And J.R. is not only a research scientist here at the SETI Institute, he's also a bit of an entrepreneur and an innovator. He's got his own company that he started called Made of Mars. And what he's doing in that company is actually exploring the technologies that are going to be required to build things on Mars with the ingredients available on Mars, things like gypsum and silicon and iron and other things. But he's got a whole company that's starting to use some of the available materials, raw materials we know are on Mars, to start informing future operations on what can we do and how can we use these materials to build things that we will need once we're there. Very cool company. But he's also one of the scientists here, along with many, and many of our people in education and outreach, who's interested in evangelizing science and about getting people excited and engaged in science and about space exploration and understanding our universe, our solar system, our Earth a bit better. And so we're going to talk to JR about some of the new tools that are available to us, new technologies available to us like augmented reality and virtual reality, and physical tools and technologies that can help explain science. So join us as we go and meet and talk to JR. If you're watching, give us a thumbs up for space exploration and for space and science education and information, and cool things like augmented reality and virtual reality. Some thumbs up for the SETI Institute and all the cool people here. And tell your friends you're watching. You know, give it a post and let everybody know that you're joining us here in Mountain View at the SETI Institute. And in the meantime, let's go talk to JR and learn a little bit about augmented reality, virtual reality, and the tools of science education. I think we'll find him a little bit over here, Lee, and sure enough, right on cue, there he is, JR. How you doing, JR?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and talking to the gang today. So say hi to everybody out in Facebook land.
Hello.
So this is JR. Just as I mentioned, not only a research scientist here at the SETI Institute, but a bit of an entrepreneur with Made of Mars, which we've talked about a little bit. But you're here to talk to us a little bit about some of the new tools and technologies that are available to us to do education and exploration in science in virtual ways. So, fire away.
On top of researching the universe and all the planets as we do here, a big part of our mission is to educate, like share these stories that we have with everyone else.
Absolutely.
And that's how we both create the interest and the funding that we need for government to push forward and do all what we want to do, and then inspire the next generations.
It's part of our mission statement, so absolutely true.
So I've been studying the planets since I was a kid. I started my first Mars project when I was like 13, and just my entire life it's been a journey for me.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of understanding how it's connected with me, how it's caught my attention, allows us to figure out what are the tools that are going to connect the next generation, how can we do better than what we've done before.
Sure.
And I was lucky enough to be born in the countryside, upstate New York, clear skies, and so just from the time I was a kid, enjoying the stars, and that really got to me as something wonderful.
Yeah.
And then just started reading the books. When I was a kid, it was before the internet actually.
Mm-hmm.
Those days when Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot was like a book I read as a kid, found it, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
And books are such a powerful way to tell these narratives, tell the stories. You can get these just incredibly deep and broad natures of what's going on in space, and it connects, and it's a beautiful thing. But there's limitations of the books, right? Like that was written in the 90s, and it's a little stale now. All the missions since then are no longer captured there. So we've learned a lot, and so how do you take the benefits of that and then add new tools with it with every additional mission? And so that's kind of what I want to talk today about, using new technology, new tools, and figure out how to tell these stories and kind of push forward with how we can connect to people. So after being fascinated by the stories of Hagen and other reading and capturing my attention, we turned to maps, paper maps of Mars, globes like this where we have, this is the moon, all these landing sites and craters and everything's marked there. And I spent a lot of time staring at these. And
by the way, we had one of the folks who worked in the admin department here say not long ago that one of her daughters came in to visit and saw all these globes around and pointed out and said, "Hey Mom, you've got all these cool globes here and they're not Earth."
Yeah.
So you're right, they're a great way to, it's a three-dimensional physical way to observe and learn and
so much
discover.
we've gotten really good at putting topography of the planets on a piece of paper. Like that's a whole art to itself. But something about seeing how things actually look on a sphere in reality allows us to study it better and really get a better sense of it. And so I spend a lot of times with globes like this. But still, there's limitations. Like you can see here all the places we landed on the moon, and that makes it somewhat stale. So the next mission to the moon will not be on this globe. So how do we enhance upon this with using new technologies and that? And so VR, like we've seen, I'm sure probably previous lives have shown how you can explore other worlds and space stations and all these things and transport yourself with VR technologies. And now one of the amazing things about being here specifically at SETI is the kind of access to Silicon Valley. There's so much innovation, so much just technology development happening here that I've been very fortunate to take advantage of that kind of energy and effort to kind of take the science that we do and connect with it. And so a big thing going on all throughout the Valley now is the development of VR and augmented reality is the next step of how do you interact with technology in the real world. If anyone's played Pokemon Go a couple years ago, like that kind of showed what that kind of AR is like.
Well, I remember, we had droves of people in our parking lot. So it was coming by with their phones, and there's a Pokemon around here somewhere.
So that the kind of ability to take the interactiveness of technology and bring it into our world is such a powerful tool.
Yeah. And I think the other point you're making really is the pace of information gathering or data collection, more specifically in the sciences, is going way too fast to be kept up with through conventional means like paper publishing or even things like movies and films, etc. You've got to do something that can be updated easily and readily, but in a way as impactful as wonderful pictures and books and things.
So here's Google Earth, right? I spend a lot of time. This is the Mars version on Google Earth.
So Google Mars.
So I spent a lot of my life playing with data there, seeing how everything connects, putting data set upon data set in such a way. And every time there's a new mission, every time a new instrument takes a picture, we can add it to this kind of digital model. So that's forever, uploading and updating and revising with every new discovery. So that's kind of the next step of how do we get this data. And that's, there's no replacing that tool. But at the same time, there are limitations to whenever we have digital. I spent a lot of time doing field work, holding rocks, and there's something about the human experience of holding something in your hands. So for example, here's a ventifact I picked up in Antarctica a few years ago. And this thing sat for millions of years on the surface and just blown by dust, causing these incredibly smooth surfaces. And just the weight and the feel of understanding the history of a rock in your fingertips.
What is the material?
That's a dolerite from the dry valleys. That it's a pretty resistant rock, so it sat there and just through sand erosion and wind blowing that from principal directions over and over again.
Carved and chiseled.
Yeah, it's just the wind has been acting on that for a long, long time, so it's just been sitting on the surface, and there's just the act
nothing
of
like
feeling
holding it and feeling it, right?
And feeling it, and that's why kind of merging the technology that we've seen in a physical way is such a powerful thing. And so these are globes that are being made by a company that I've found locally, Astral Reality. So far, they're made the moon, it's fully available, and coming out of the Earth. And these are one of the best kind of just topographic objects I've ever seen for feeling the planets.
And I understand that they're really using accurate, latest available data and kind of hand building and hand painting?
Yeah, hand painted, because there's no, the original model is 3D printed based on NASA data. So the Lola mission on the LRO spacecraft that shot lasers, millions and millions of laser points at the surface of the moon.
So we have accurate topography.
Yeah.
And the topography is recovered through the 3D printing process.
Yep.
And then they add to that the hand painting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the best way they found to make reproduce both the topography and the coloring as accurate as possible with current accessible manufacturing tools.
Yep.
So I'm a nerd fan, or a map fan. So you've
take a look at that.
Seen these things. So I've played with maps and always on the search up. So I found this local company and made some of the best globes. I've always wanted to be able to feel these planets, and there's large museums where you can have large picture globes of Mars. There's some more with Earth where you can feel little textures, but I've never been able to find globes where I can feel like this. So this is a very heavy thing, if you notice.
Yes,
it feels like a rock in your hand.
It does.
And to hold a planet, to understand how smooth, like the dark side, the mare of the moon, right? It's so much smoother than the cratered highlands.
Yep.
And there's just a lot of science that's built into that, from the younger surfaces that have been covered by volcanoes to much more ancient, heavily cratered. So just feeling it allows you to get a sense of it that you can't just from looking at a map.
Yeah.
And so that's the power there. So kind of the next step past just like digitally looking at data on Google Earth is using augmented reality. So these are some posters these are produced by the Lunar Planetary Institute, and they've created these. They're available
Now
online.
explain at a high level what you mean by augmented reality in the first place. I'm sure many people here in Facebook land know exactly what it is, but some might not. So maybe, and how AR and VR are different from one another.
So VR creates that virtual environment. So you put the headset on.
Headset.
Yeah, you're connected to the code of this,
that's
this wire here.
Your VR experience.
Yep. So it sticks you in a whole world, but it does kind of isolate you a bit, right? It does take a bit of the real world nature out of it. So AR is the idea that instead of pushing yourself into that world alone, you take technology to kind of add a digital layer onto reality. So for instance, with these posters that are freely available on the LPI usra.edu/AR website, you can go and get an app, put these posters
We can share that, I guess, can we? It's lpi.usra.edu/AR.
So they're, this is a really just
So this is what happens now, so people can get an idea. This is what happens when you hold in this case, an iPad with the appropriate app loaded onto it, and it's imaging this.
Yeah, it's
poster
imaging
picture.
The poster here, so you
But
can put it up in your wall or
it
digital.
activates the AR on
so
the app, which
now,
is completely cool.
Yeah, now you can have it pop out, you can spin it around, you can go in, zoom in, pull out, and I keep putting my hand in front of it.
Here, let me hold it for you.
Yeah, it just creates a bit of interaction. So yes, you could probably look at the same information on Google Earth, but it doesn't allow you to quite have the same interaction. The fact that there is a poster, it is a bit more social than that, and so that's kind of the power. And we're still at the early days of seeing how AR is going to be integrated. So these posters, which are available from LPI, is just one example. So kind of getting back to, another one here is so that was Pluto. There's a whole bunch of them. Another one that's particularly good is these asteroids. So this pops out a nice little asteroid here, and then you can.
Are you able to see that, Lee? That's fantastic.
This allows you to do like thin section cuts, and so now rather than just having a rock on the surface, you can now digitally explore it, which you can't normally cut open an asteroid this much unless you own all the pieces. So this allows you to explore very in depth all this information that is available by NASA in a digital way. So that's kind of one side, but that's still just digital. And so that's where this kind of astro reality company is kind of taking the next step of how do you kind of add that to the real world. So these are just a few screenshots. You can see the map here. I did this earlier on my phone, where if you get the Astro Reality app, there's a lot of just built-in capabilities to explore the solar system already. So for instance, just any flat surface and the free app, you can explore the Cassini mission that just plummeted into Saturn.
Okay, so this is an image captured from your phone when you held the phone over the map.
Or if it's any place, that's any place that I just happen to do on the map.
Oh, I see, okay.
We can see that here. So for instance, this is already included in the app. So
Here, I'll hold it for you and you can demonstrate.
Oh, you have,
Or you have to hold it down to the
you have
right.
to find the
oh,
thing.
there it is.
Yeah, so
there's the spacecraft.
This is free content on the app, so you can explore the Cassini, which flew into Saturn last year.
Last September, yeah.
Yep. So that's one. They also come preloaded with the moon. So the moon is now sitting there. So you can have a lot of the information on the moon.
So these are then clickable things which you can
Yep.
dig
So you
in.
can click on them. You can learn some information, explore some photos. You can see the spacecraft, so see where we had landing sites. So if you want to go explore the Powell mission and know where on the planet is. So yeah, that's incredibly powerful of just adding, being able to explore this wherever you are and add it a bit more social than keeping Google Earth that's just on your computer. So you can take it out with your phone, with your iPad, and take in the world. But the real power with like an Astro Reality company is kind of pairing these globes, which just gives you that tactile experience with this app. So if you just want a globe of the moon or Earth, it's the best I've seen. But then you can
suffice it to say, folks, these are not to scale. So the moon compared to the Earth is a lot smaller than you see here. Just don't want anybody writing in saying, "Wait, those are wrong."
They're wrong. So there's a reason for that, because it's
you want detail.
App, yeah, you need the detail for the app to find it. So here is on the lunar one. You can see here that it's actually identifying. Yes. So it's actually finding features on the moon. So there, by pointing it at the globe, which is here, you can track around. You can pick things. So if you care about the last rover to go on the moon, the U-2 by the Chinese, this allows you to explore some of the things it saw, see what the rover looked like. Oops, went back in. Yep, so there's craters and features. So this way, it kind of merges the data expansiveness of Google Earth, but also
the physical model
nature of it. So you can toss it with your friends. You can feel moon features, and then compared to the old moons, this is updatable.
Yeah.
So the next time NASA or SpaceX or Blue Origin decide to build a base on the moon, you can add that in here and keep up to date in the future. So fantastic. I just love that every time a new scientist here creates a new data set, a new something that goes to the moon, this can be added electronically. So it's an always updating, never-ending set of data. And combined with something that you can actually hold in your hands. And so that kind of merging the real and the digital is such a powerful thing.
And this is a kind of a paper version of the same thing from Astro Reality?
Yeah, so Astro Reality started with a paper version of this where you look at that and it pops open the moon. But then they were able to update the technology to have that AR kit where you can have this moon anywhere. So the poster is still cool, but they've moved beyond that as the technology develops. And that's the power of the apps, right? You bring down a new update and you have all these new capabilities as soon as the technology is ready. So that kind of constant updating is the power of marrying the technology advancements with kind of physical things. So this is what the moon looks like, and unless there's a huge impact, it's always pretty much going to look like this for the rest of our life. So the physical nature of the moon, of the Earth, they're not really going to change too much in our lifetimes. But our understanding of it, the data sets we have, the landing missions there, all that stuff is constantly changing. And that's what we can use the technology to add that layer to.
Well, imagine the kind of cool things you can do. I mean, for example, to your point, the continent positions and relative sizes are not going to change in our lifetime, but they've moved over eons. And so you can imagine an augmented reality, for example, where you're able to hold the globe and hold that VR tool over it and see the continental drift, the plate tectonics that have taken place. And
you can see continental drift, animations of maybe even the formation of the moon, the large impacts. You can look at weather systems, how hurricanes are happening, looking at even human data, like how population spreads, how nations change, looking at animal migrations. So for example, I found this book in the bookstore a while back, and it's just an amazing collection of maps where they put tracking data on animals, and then they kind of graph it and just they show GPS location of animal tracks. And it's just really beautiful to see this information on a map and understand all these stories, right? Like each map here is a story of an animal moving around the world. And it's a really great thing, I love it, but it's still a little disconnected from the rest of the story. And so by adding that type of information onto a globe, you can see, how do birds migrate across the planet? How do whales travel?
Context of other migrations and locations, etc.
And then adding the story of the animals to the climate, right? So the seasons change and temperature gets cold, you can see all the animals start to migrate. So you can start seeing those connections. And we spend our days living in a city inside a country with all the politics of that. And when you hold a planet in your hand, you don't see America here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see our continent. If there's pollution in China, you can see how it's going to travel to North America. We're not divided in this way. So you can see this as a global story, of how it's all interconnected. And so those are the stories that I'm helping advise the team, Astro Reality, to help tell these stories. Like take all the data we have, all the stories of life on Earth. For SETI, we're trying to understand life, where it came from, how it evolved. Our scientists travel around the world to understand the most alien places we know and figure out how life became what it is on one planet, so we can look for on other planets.
Well, one of the fun things about a globe, in fact, to your point, is it's a wonderful frame of reference in which to say, where do our scientists work? Like, for example, one of your places of work is there in Iceland, and you've done,
I've worked in
Chile.
Atacama. I've been to the dry valleys in Antarctica. I've been to hot springs in New Zealand down there. All over the place, just understanding how this world came to be, how volcanoes and hot springs might have been where life formed. And so all those stories are on this. And
a lot more fun to talk about them in the context of the globe instead of
a picture here and that. And so eventually try and take all the data and put it in this global context. It's just I'm hoping to eventually create this for educators, for our students, as well as the researchers. Being able to see these very intricate data sets and connections. And seeing that on a global stage is just a much more powerful thing than any single map.
Absolutely.
And seeing
just
all the technology development.
Hold on, do we have any questions out there in Facebook land coming in?
So people have been asking how to get hold of one of these globes.
Oh, we're going to come to that. We'll come to that at the end, but
There's been some helpful people chiming in.
Chiming in?
Links.
All right.
So the moon here is already available. You can get that. That came out in last year. The globe here, Earth, this is currently available on a Kickstarter now. So that I think there should be a link somewhere in there. And so they are developing this now. So this is one of the early production models that they're still
perfecting
a bit, and then getting the app going. So I think hopefully they can find the link on.
We'll share the link.
I'm really excited because I'm a Mars scientist that I'm pushing them hard to create the Mars story coming out here. So if you're really excited about the planetary and the astrobiology stories that we are creating every day, so there should be a good Mars.
Now they do have, if I understand correctly, they have also smaller, highly detailed hand-painted planets. They don't have the AR elements yet associated with them, but at least they've got these wonderful...
if you want to have the whole solar system, not to scale, you can have those around. So if you go to the website for astroreality.com, they have a whole line, everything from notebooks that's also AR enabled that you can explore the same moon. So they have a whole line of things. In order to have the full AR experience, you do need the details of the larger globes about the size.
So we are talking to Astro Reality, in fact, about getting the planets done to scale for displays here at the SETI Institute. Of course, if Earth was this big, Jupiter would be like so. So we might have to make a smaller Earth so that Jupiter can be something like this. But what a great way to storytell and to provide information like scale, which is so hard to describe.
And that's like the beautiful thing is eventually with the app, right? So you can look at one planet and then have the app come in what the scale of it would be. And so that technology is just limitless on that front. And so so we're working hard now as a team. I'm trying to figure out. Work with the team to figure out what are the data sets that will most work best to tell the stories we want to tell. Everything from what the planet is made of. So we can, that's the sort of thing. On a globe, you're stuck looking at the surface. But with the technology, you can cut away to see what is going on under your feet. Eventually, we can add
cutaway lead.
So that's, again, all these are available on our Kickstarter page if you look at them there too. We have CO2 emissions to understand how, where is emitting the most. How does that affect climate? We can watch cloud maps coming from NASA satellites, explore animals, and this is we're looking for killer whale sightings as a particular animal. So animals, plants, geology, environmental, humanities, and meteorology are all topics that we want to add to the story. And a big thing is, I have a lot of stories of Earth and Moon and Mars that I want to share, but we really want to know what people want to know, right?
Sure.
So send us your comments, figure out what are the data sets that you want to see put in the world. That way we can figure out how to tell those stories in this format and eventually put them into the app and make it available.
So you've got basic questions like we all have, and many of those are what we pursue at the Institute, like if there were life on Mars, where might it be or where might it have been? What did Mars look like in its early after its formation, where we think it was actually covered in water or had a global ocean and was warmer and milder than it is now, obviously, had an atmosphere.
Active eruptions, all the
active
energies of the real
eruptions.
world.
So all kinds of things you might want to know. Age of the planets, age of Saturn's rings, tell us what kind of things you're curious about. All of this kind of information or these questions can go to feed in the sort of augmented reality elements we can build into these sorts of models. And
we all care about Earth; it's our home, and
Yep.
it's even at SETI, right? Even though our eyes are always to the stars and the other planets, like this is the only planet where we found life so far.
Yeah.
So understanding why that is such a critical part of our mission here.
Well, and I think that a good point. One of the things we've also learned is that there is no good plan B for planet Earth anywhere nearby, anywhere we could think of, and getting to, and anything like a human lifespan or even multi-generational human lifespans. Just as a point of reference, to get to the closest star from Earth, Alpha Centauri, 4.5 light years away, with conventional rocket technologies, it's a mere 79,000 year journey. So we get to take care of the planet we're on. And Mars is not, Mars might be a cool place to visit, but just remember that, a day in the great outdoors on Mars is a day in a spacesuit, every time, all the time, no options. So harsh environment. So good to understand about Mars, but good to take care of Earth.
And I think like a lot of our environmental movement started with the early Apollo days, when we could finally see Earth as a
From a
single
distance, yes.
image, right?
Yeah,
all of it in one place, and then just having the Earth in your life, like putting it on a shelf, and every day think about our experience at this scale is just such a powerful thing to internalize every day. And maybe it might change your behaviors or how you think of the world. And adding all the different stories of technology, of how pollution and climate and all those things are affecting both now as well as the future is I think an important part for everyone to really internalize and how we go about our lives.
Absolutely, that's great. Well, any other tools or technologies you might like to mention in passing before
So that's the
talk
big
about
things.
the links?
The big things I want to show, and the biggest is figuring out what are the stories that the public wants, right? Like we have too many stories to tell in the amount of days and time we have to tell them. So understanding how we can best take what we know, what are people eager to learn, so we know how to prioritize the stories that people want.
Right.
And I think that way you can help us develop the tools that you'll want to use, and we'll do our best to take all the data and all the information we're discovering every day and use every technology we can to make it accessible.
And impactful and exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the other thing we ought to do is get you back here to talk about Made of Mars.
Yeah, look forward to that.
That would be a lot of fun. That's a great project, a great program. So, we're really happy to be helping out Astro Reality in the context of an organization that is working as we do to help do exciting and impactful education and outreach and information, sharing the knowledge that organizations like the SETI Institute, organizations like NASA have, getting that information out to the public in engaging and compelling and fun ways. And augmented reality and virtual reality are great ways to do that. As JR said, the Astro Reality organization is having a Kickstarter campaign right now, which you can go and visit their Kickstarter page and learn about what it is they're offering and see about their technology, get your hands on some of these things. And I'd be remiss in talking about that without also talking about the fact that at the SETI Institute, we are a nonprofit, unlike Astro Reality, and we are in the midst, in terms of our outreach and engagement, of raising money for the Big Picture Science radio program we have. That's this amazing, wonderful general science program hosted by Seth Shostak and Molly Bentley. And you've met them before, you've seen the studio and talked to them. You know how wonderful and amazing that program is, and that podcast. So please think about supporting Big Picture Science and getting involved with us at the SETI Institute to help us continue these kind of outreach programs. Take a look at Astro Reality, and of course, come and visit us every week on Facebook Live and let your friends know. We got any other comments or questions, Rebecca, that we want to hit up on at this point?
People are really interested and where to download it.
Yep.
They're excited about the coming Mars.
Mars will be great. We're
working hard to make that a reality.
Mars is kind of front and center at the SETI Institute, so we're looking forward to that one. That's going to be great
A
fun.
lot of good stories to tell there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, JR, thanks again very much.
Thank
Good
you
to
so
see
much.
you. And thanks for bringing these materials along. Hope everybody enjoyed that, and you're starting to see, you'll see more of these amazing augmented reality kinds of programs and technologies being deployed. We'll tell you the stories that we think are relevant and meaningful. We're also working with an organization doing virtual reality, giving you VR experiences on Mars, for example, showing habitats, and you can move around the surface of Mars in a spacesuit, of course. There's another wonderful one that we've engaged with on the International Space Station, where you can float around inside there. So a lot of very cool VR and AR educational experiences. We'll try to share those more with you in the coming episodes. So for now, we say goodbye from the SETI Institute in Mountain View. Wish you all a great day, and we'll see you next week for another episode. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.